Good evening. I'm delighted to be here. First of all, I will start with agreeing with the previous two speakers, Victor Fung and Pamela Ma, on the critical role of SMEs and how they can contribute. In fact, it is imperative that they are empowered to participate fully, to engage fully in our new digital and green world. The problem is that they are not. If you look at it from the cross-border payments perspective, you see, cross-border payments is not merely the movement of goods and services across borders, but it goes beyond that. It's about tourism. It's about remittance. It's about e-commerce. And although in the SME sector, some of the M's, maybe the medium-sized firms, may be able to participate more actively, certainly the S, and even if you look at the micro enterprises, they are still excluded from global trade because of four factors. And this is a big problem. One is cost. The other one is the speed, how long it takes. Then it is difficult to access and is totally opaque. Let me give you a practical example, an illustration. Let's say that I do international trade in a small scale. I bought a service in the UK and I have to transfer $300. Only $300. And for that, my banker required that I go to the counter service to transfer $300. It took 4 or 5 days and it cost me $30. That's just an illustration of that. The small and micro businesses do not have democracy, as Victor Fung put it so nicely, in the cross-border payment system. And this is important to what he has just said and what Pamela has said as well, because the cross-border payment system is at the heart of all our activities. I mean, you can trade domestically, but unless if you're going to go for anything that's cross-border, you need an efficient, cheap, flexible, transparent cross-border payment system, and we don't have that. Now, this is a problem that has, what we are relying on is a system called SWIFT, which was created in 1973, and basically is a messaging system, and then it's backed by a process of correspondent banks, which sometimes work and sometimes doesn't work, and you don't really know how many correspondent banks any cross-border payments have to make. So the idea that we must have, an effective cross-border system has been like a holy grail that so many people have searched for since maybe the Middle Ages or even before. In the old days, you carry bags of coins or gold if you want to do cross-border trade. And then the big invention was to have bill of exchange. And then we go on to the SWIFT system 49 years ago, and we haven't changed very much since then. So for the first time in our human history, the idea of an equitable cross-border payment system, which means it's cheap, it's easy to access, it's transparent, and it's fast, is within reach in the next 10 years. When I say is easy to access, can you imagine you can do foreign exchange anytime? But when you make a cross-border payment, it depends on the time zone and whether the banks have common working hours. You can't do remittance during the weekend, and you can't do it when it's a long holiday. And this is happening in the digital era. And it's just seems very strange to me. And what has changed that makes the Holy Grail enrich, at least in the next 5 or 10 years. Of course, it's technology, but also and it's not just technology, but the application and the experiments that have been going on. And experts are now saying that if we have the combination, if we harness the technology and have the combination of central bank digital currency and the linkages, the linking of domestic fast payment system, we could solve the problems that I have cited. So let me maybe share a few words on what's going on the digital bank, on the central bank digital currency. And I was just cut to the, okay, let me start the other way. 86% of central banks in the world are seriously considering issuing their money, their own money. And 60% are actually doing something about it, and 14% expect to issue soon. The most advanced, of course, what you do is, let me explain. The central bank will issue the currency, country A and country B. So instead of going through the SWIFT system and the banking system, they can trade and then exchange directly their central bank digital currency. This is the claim would be against the own central bank. But what is the most advanced is actually in Hong Kong itself. There is a project called the M-Bridge. This means it's a multilateral central bank digital currency system. It's not just bilateral trade and settlement between two countries, but we now have 4 countries participating. One is, of course, Hong Kong. The other is Thailand, and then China and the UAE. So, and the experiment has been very successful, and it does address the 4 problems that I have mentioned. But moreover, it minimizes, if not totally eliminates, the friction that we have, because it can operate 24 hours, but also in terms of compliance and reporting, because that can be done automatically. And central banks, what I have described is what is called wholesale central bank digital currency. But there is also retail, which people could use at their own level, not just for the big trade between countries. So that's the central bank digital currency. And I'm just going to go over quickly the other side of the equation, which is the linking of the fast payments across countries. And again, Asia is leading in that, because while a number of countries are experimenting, Singapore and Thailand have linked their domestic payment system. The Singapore system is called Pay Now, and the Thailand system is called Prompt Pay. And last year, they linked their 2 systems. So if you live in Singapore and you want to send money to somebody in Hong Kong, either for trade, you're buying something from their Facebook or whatever, you can send money to them just using their mobile number. And that is instantaneous. I mean, it basically takes seconds, because at the border, each country has its own foreign exchange layer, and it's beautifully done. But the question then, arose, if you have a lot of bilateral settlements, you're going to need a lot of, settlements, and it's be very confusing. How do you deal with that? So another project that's going on is called Project Nexus, which is under the auspices of the Bank for International Settlement. It's based in Singapore. And the idea is, if we can have to develop a platform so that all the countries that want to participate can then plug in, it will be, a multi settlement system for fast payments. So between these 2 systems, settlement system, we are, as I said earlier, enrich of something that could solve the cross-border payments problems that have been plaguing us for centuries and even for the past many decades. And that would be a great boon to global trade. So what are the considerations? I suppose on the plus side, it's a sign of global cooperation, because this particular project, at least the cross-border payments in its totality, was supported greatly by the G20 at the Riyadh summit in 2020. So it's still supported by the G20. So that's very encouraging. And you have ASEAN, which has an initiative to link payment systems in different countries. On the other side, I think we have to be realistic and, accept that whatever cooperation there is would take into account the political realities. But what is happening so far to date that I have seen, that is very encouraging. So I think we will have the democratization that in trade settlements that Victor Fung mentioned earlier. Thank you.